Technically, lighting is easy. All that needs to be done is to provide enough base light to meet the requirements of the equipment and limit the contrast between highlights and shadows in your picture. But don't let this responsibility mask your freedom of expression. That bit of time, magnetically captured, must tell a story. The fact of that which is recorded is not enough. The mood and the essence of the story should be your aim. Light is the expression of the videographer. Your statement is there, interpreting what you see and feel. I'm Joni.
And I'm Mike. And in the next half hour, we'll be showing you potentials, possibilities, and problems in a host of lighting situations, all carefully designed to help you light. As you can imagine, there are all kinds of lighting conditions that you will encounter in your video productions, and each situation will have its own unique blend of light sources to try your talents. Could be shadows when you're at the zoo, direct sunlight at the beach, incandescent light when you shoot a rock band demo reel, natural interior from various sources while you're shooting a pilot for a TV show, fluorescent lights when you're shooting a sports training tape, bright shade during a travel log taping, cloudy, overcast conditions shooting your son's first goal, or night conditions at that pool party. Maybe it's a combination of two or more of these sources, or some we haven't mentioned. What's important to keep in mind is that all light has certain characteristics: its quality, its intensity or brightness, and its color temperature.
We'll be touching on these characteristics from time to time throughout the show, but right now you want to focus on the concept of contrast between areas of light and dark in your picture frame every time you take a shot.
To begin with, there are two basic conditions of light quality. Outside is a good place to show you what I mean. The first is hard light. This means the quality of light is highly directional. You can easily tell the direction it's coming from, and it's very concentrated. The light waves are practically parallel, giving clearly defined shadows and lighted areas. With hard light, the balance of dark and light areas is clearly defined. That is, the contrast between the two is very great. Here in the shade, or on an overcast day, we find a lighting situation giving the quality of soft light. With soft light, the texture of light is diffused. The light waves are bouncing all around, filling in shadowed areas, apparently coming from all directions. Here, the balance of light and dark areas is more even, giving us a lower contrast between the two. Compare them both. Hard, directional light gives us a high contrast. Soft, diffuse light gives us a low contrast. In almost any lighting situation, people and things are illuminated by both hard and soft light. Here inside, Gramps' sunlight through the window is the hard, directional source of light. But at the same time, light naturally reflecting off the ceiling and walls of the room give us a soft light as well. The combination is pleasing both to your eye and the camera's eye. And understanding the concept of balance or ratio of these two kinds of light is central to the art of lighting for videography.
Contrast ratio, the relationship of the brightest area to the darkest area in your picture frame. A key concept, contrast ratio.
So we have different qualities of light, hard and soft. However, these two qualities of light don't necessarily have to do with the intensity or brightness of the light. That's right, hard and soft refer to the quality of light, not its brightness.
You've noticed my friend Joni here has been a great help thus far in our discussion, so I'm sure she won't mind helping out further. To begin with, she's got something we all need to know about. That's right, an eye. In fact, two of them. And Joni here is going to get into a lot of trouble. We all can, if we assume our eyes see like this, the video camera lens. The facts are your camera sees things in a much different way than your eyes do. And knowing the difference is important to your handling the contrast ratio of dark to light areas in your picture frame. Your eye is far more sensitive to light. We see clearly in situations where video cameras see poorly at best. Both in very dark and very bright settings, we can see detail clearly, where the camera might be pressed to give a clear image. Compare the eye's ability to handle contrast ratios of 1,000 to 1 to your video camera's 30 to 1. There's a big difference there. When the scene has highlights that exceed the 30-to-1 ratio that the camera can handle, the camera will not be able to produce details in these areas. When the overall level of the scene is high, and the primary subject is in deep shade, causing the dark area to fall outside of the 30-to-1 ratio capability of the camera, there will be a loss of detail in the dark areas. Another point to remember when you're sizing up a shot and planning your lighting needs: we see with two eyes, which gives us depth perception, three-dimensional vision. The camera sees with only one eye, the lens, without depth perception, two-dimensional vision. The only way we can add the feeling of depth to what we shoot is through lighting, with the use of shadows, shading, texture, and highlights.
But now back to contrast ratio for a minute. Mike, why don't you show us what can happen and how to correct it when you exceed the 30-to-1 contrast ratio?
Okay. Next time you're taping your best girl, buffing her buggy, try this learning exercise. With video, the real problem is with too great of extremes between the lightest and darkest area in your scenes. Because of the nature of your camera's pickup tube, hot highlights can produce various kinds of electronic distortion in your picture. Blooming is one effect. Another problem from hot spots, called lag, happens when you move your camera. What's happening is the highlight is retained on the pickup tube. Then also watch out for lens flare. First, keep a can of dulling spray or silver duct tape handy. They're great glare cutters. Now look at the same shot with dulling spray and duct tape, pulling down the highlights to a level that the camera can handle. Second, to prevent light sneaking into the camera lens, you can rig a card, or as we call it, a flag, to cut your sun flaring problems. Now look again at the shot that had the lens flare, corrected with little time and expense.
Your best girl, huh?
Well, anyway, don't forget that you may want to leave the lens flare in your shot. It conveys the feeling of hot. Again, let your subject matter dictate what you do. There's no real secret to the control of light. It'll do exactly what you want it to do. Now, for the sake of clarity, we're using one of our studio fixtures, but the same holds true of all lights. All you have to do is roll up your sleeves and take control. First, you can control it on and off. No mystery there, right? But we can do much more. Just watch. We can aim it and move it. We can spot or focus it, concentrate it. We can break it up or diffuse it, turning a single shaft into a broad veil of light. We can sculpt it or model it into any pattern we desire. Or by aiming it at a reflective surface, we can bend it or bounce it in any direction we care to.
As we've seen, most lighting for video involves working with the qualities of both hard and soft light. Most situations you'll be shooting are illuminated with varying ratios of both. Your main job in the second C of light, the control of light, is to get a reasonable balance or contrast ratio between light areas and dark areas for your camera's eye.
Let's tackle the control of light in the great outdoors.
Shooting outside events and stories is a natural for home video. Here you're free to shoot what video loves, plenty of action and movement. But movement is the first problem to overcome. In other words, the sun's movement. Naturally, the sun is your major source of light outside. You're at its mercy, or so it would seem. Hey, Rick, over here. First of all, any photographer will tell you that generally the best time of day to shoot is in the morning and afternoon. Most subjects look best when sunlight is falling at an angle to them rather than straight down. Now, that's not to say you won't ever have problems then. It's just that it looks better. When the sun is high overhead, around noon, it tends to create deep shadows on the face, under the eyes, nose, and chin. Thanks, Rick. You can see how the sunlight is brighter on the top with a hot spot and deeply shaded on the bottom. One way to correct this would be to use a reflector to fill in the bottom. We'll get into the use of reflectors in just a minute as we get into control. In outdoor shooting, you'll find most shots made with subjects facing into the sun are successful. The lighting is even, the appearance desirable. But sometimes you can't always get the sun to cooperate. Here's a strong backlight situation. This too can happen, strong side light, and both of these conditions can be remedied. Here's how. You may want to practice this exercise around the home. All you need is a subject, your camera and tripod setup, and a simple homemade reflector. White card on one side and crinkled aluminum foil on the other. In setting up, first you set your white balance. This is an automatic feature that's your main control over color temperature. Remember, if your camera has a built-in color temperature filter wheel, select the proper setting, then set your white balance. Next, pick a subject with nice front lighting and adjust your iris setting. The camera iris is your control over how much light you let into the camera. Now find a subject in strong backlight. Here you have two options of control after you adjust the iris. First, your camera may have a backlight control. In this case, this control boosts up your dark areas. But remember, it also tends to introduce noise or grain into your image because the camera is trying to produce an image where there isn't enough light for a good picture. For both a strong back and side lighting situation, it's easy to redirect the sun to fill in the shadows where it's needed. With the help of an assistant and my homemade reflector, I can bounce light to wherever I need it. See how the light off the card side is more diffused? And here, the foil side makes for a stronger beam. Remember, the sun off a reflector can be very strong. Be careful not to blind your subject. There'll be many times when you'll need a reflector to help reduce your contrast ratio. Practice with it. You'll find all sorts of places you can use it. Like we said at the top of this segment, you can do wonders with light when you take control. So now we're going to build with it. You remember from the first tape in this learning library, Shooting Home Video the Basics, we detailed the classic three-point system in the studio. For those of you who didn't see the first show, and as a refresher for the rest of you, we're going to repeat it now.
Key light, the sun, the spotlight, the main light source falling on your subject. Placement, just to the left or right of your immediate camera position. Key light.
According to the classic three-point system, your key is the first light to be set. It's positioned to one side of the camera and focused down at a 45-degree angle. This shortens the shadows that fall behind. The key light is the foundation for the rest of your lighting efforts. It illuminates the brightest area of your picture, and naturally, the eye of your viewer will head for it instinctively. Now the fill light.
Fill light, softer, more diffused light, filling in the shadows created by the key light, leaving just enough shadow for a feeling of depth. Placement. The fill light is placed on the same plane as the camera lens, on the opposite side from your key light. Fill light.
Setting your fill light is easy. Its main job is to bring out detail in the shadows made by the key light. Let's see it again. Off, there is a heavy shadow. On, the shadow is softened. Too bright, and there's no shadow at all. That looks flat, uninteresting. Bring it down, and a pleasing mixture. Ideally, your fill light casts no shadows itself, only reduces the contrast of light and dark from the key. The final Hollywood touch in your lighting setup comes from the backlight.
Backlight, a spotlight from behind, pulls your subject out into the third dimension, defines it. Placement, directly opposite your camera position, behind your subject. Elevation, 45 degrees. Backlight.
The backlight is the third light to be set. It's also aimed down at 45 degrees. It complements the key light and fill light and brings me out from the background. See the rim effect around my shoulders and hair? Looks more lifelike. And that's the trick with lighting. You're working for an optical illusion, for the camera's eye. The backlight is usually about as strong as the fill light and not quite as strong as the key light. But so much for theory. Cut 'em.
Now, in our next lighting workshop, we're going to take this concept a little further. Anyone for charades? In this lighting workshop demonstration, you'll see how to transform a family room or living room into a veritable sound stage in 4 easy steps. It's an exercise you should try around your home. Let's watch as one of our VC 2000 videographers works on this problem. Your first step is to size up your main camera angles for shooting your action. From there, you determine your 3 basic light positions: key light, fill light, and backlight. Second step, draft a simple diagram when lighting a scene to accommodate movement you need to plot the action and plan accordingly. Assuming 3 basic areas of action, a couch for team number 1, a couch for team number 2, and a center stage for the main action, Bill, our videographer, figured he could light the scene with 4 lights. Often you'll find your positions can do double duty. He'd use 2 total lights, both trained on center stage, each doubling as a backlight key light or fill light, depending on his camera position. And he'd use 2 fill lights out front to balance out the shadows from the total lights. Again, these will be multifunctional. You'll find most location interiors leave you with low ceilings and no offset space. Needless to say, placement is challenging at times. Bill decided to hang his total lights and use stands for his fill lights. Step 3, rehearse your action against your basic setup. Let's see how our man did. First, the key light. It's the main source of illumination for this angle. It's focused down to about a 45-degree angle. That's the key light. Next, a fill light. On the opposite side from the key light, its softer quality fills out the shadows caused by the key light. That's the fill light. Finally, the backlight. From roughly behind, it brings the main subject out from the background and into the 3rd dimension. Looks fine. With a little tweaking here and there with his barn doors, Bill's ready for step 4, which is shooting his action. Bill was able to shoot the entire area using the 4 lights he set up. Let's take a look at how they work together to accomplish this. For the team seated on this couch, the camera was placed here to get both close-ups and team shots. Bill's lights cover the team like this, with this light serving as the key light, this light serving as the backlight, and this light serving as the fill light. For the team on this couch, Bill placed the camera here for the same shot selection as Team 1. For this team, this light served as the key light, with this light serving as the backlight, and this light serving as the fill light. For the shots of the person in the center stage area, Bill placed his camera here, with this light serving as the key light, this light serving as the backlight, and this light serving as the fill light. Keep your lights out of your frame. In a room such as this, it's best to hang them high, or it may be possible to hide them behind a door or furniture, or shoot from another room or through a window. But remember, always practice safety first.
Do always make sure any instruments you have rigged are secure. If there's any doubt, find another placement. Do always secure all cables and stands. Duct tape is cheaper than replacing light bulbs. Don't ever touch a bulb with your bare hands. Oil from your skin causes uneven heating and may result in an explosion. Use a clean cloth. Do always keep lights off until you're ready to shoot, and shut them down immediately after the take.
Keep in mind, in any lighting situation you're designing, be methodical. Build slowly, 1 light at a time. If you get mixed up, turn them all off and start over. This is the only way you gain control and keep control.
But video lighting professionals will tell you that merely focusing light from different angles on a subject is really just the beginning. The next step is to interpret the mood, feeling, the texture of the scene, and then use your control to maximize the emotional impact that lighting can bring. And that brings us to the 3rd C of light, creative lighting.
In quick review, you'll remember from shooting home video the basics. Just 1 light can make a world of difference in our mood by simply changing its position. Front lighting leaves flat, uninteresting shadows to the side of the nose and face. Underlighting lends unnatural shadows, leaving a sort of evil look, maybe a touch of mystery. High side lighting. Here we generated the classic look of portrait lighting, comfortably modeling the face into a three-dimensional form. Top lighting. Cast directly down, deep shadows form under the eye sockets, nose, and chin. Again, a feeling of mystery or dominance. Side lighting. Dividing the subject in half, it highlights relief, texture, and features. Rear side lighting. It yields a dramatic effect. Were we to shift a bit further behind, we'd see the shape of our subject in silhouette.
Creative lighting begins with your artistic eye. Once you've fulfilled the technical objectives of knowing how to light for a satisfactory picture signal, balancing the contrast of lights and darks, you can begin to break some of the rules. This segment's on creativity, right? Well, here's a place where you need to follow all the rules all the time. No room for creativity here. Electricity is nothing to fool with. It has no compassion, and it demands the most professional attitude you can muster. Any good electrical how-to book for the homeowner will detail breaker boxes, how they work and how you should work them. Get one and study it. You can put about 1,000 watts total on each 15-amp circuit. You're pushing it if you use more. Two things to keep in mind. One, each breaker box is different, and not all circuits are clearly marked. Some things like refrigerators or freezers may be running on circuits you shouldn't use. Two, never open up the mains of a circuit breaker box without a qualified electrician. Your electrical cable should use 12-gauge wiring and should be dressed properly, not strung all over the traffic lanes. Always take time to tape cable down if it does cross a traffic area. In kitchen and bathroom areas, be particularly careful where you lay cable. Electricity and water don't mix. And take care where you attach gels or diffusion filters. If there are drafts, be sure the material can't blow onto or brush the lamp. And when you're done shooting, here are a few rules of thumb.
As you're striking your set, first, pack up your camera, monitor, and recorder setup. It'll give your lights time to cool. Next, wrap your cable. Then you pack stands, scrims, and other accessories. Next, your lights go in safely wrapped and protected. Finally, pack your cable, as it's going to be first out at your next location.
Most of your video shooting may be centered on activities involving family and friends. Events take on a special significance when you know you can capture, enjoy, and relive them on videotape for years to come. Christmas, Thanksgiving, the 4th of July, vacations, they all become more exciting when you plan them around a story.
And for this segment on creative lighting, we're going to do just that. We'll be following Joni as she workshops a variety of home lighting situations around an Easter Sunday family get-together.
Creative lighting can play an important part in capturing a family event. You'll want to note and try the techniques demonstrated here around your home. Let's go inside.
Joni's first creative study in lighting was built around Billy. Using natural light as her key source, she captured a beautiful portraiture. Here's a simple sketch of the camera angle she wanted.
To get this mood, I adjusted my white balance for the proper color temperature, then used a blue gelled light to reduce the contrast on Billy. There was enough natural light to get a good picture of the eggs. Notice my position. Billy's right-handed, so I shot from his left, what's called an open shot, giving a nice pattern to the lights and darks.
Joni's next demonstration is also built around a creative use of source lighting. This is how she positioned her lights, subject, and camera angles for Debbie's action.
I found Debbie making hot pads for Grandma. She was framed so beautifully by the glow of her bedroom lamp, I decided to use it. I put 2 sheets of tough spun diffusion material on a small 600-watt lamp that I secured to the window with a gaffer grip. For fill, I bounced a 600-watt light off the ceiling to soften the effect of the key light, while still maintaining the single-sourced look of my shot. When I cut to a close-up of her sewing, I got this wonderful living memory.
Joni's next creative lighting challenge involved using a fluorescent light as a practical light source. In addition to the fluorescent fixture, Joni added a backlight using the barn doors to keep the spill light from the rest of the scene. She also set a diffused light to illuminate the background, to bring Dad out and give the room some depth.
When I zoomed in to get a close-up, I bounced in some fill light from a card to catch Dad's face as he worked.
Here's a typical home lighting situation calling for a mix of natural sunlight and artificial light. Joni solved it this way. This is how her setup was diagrammed for light source, camera angles, and subject.
Michael was making a fruit salad and the daylight streaming in looked so nice I decided to stay with it. To match the color temperature of the sun, I covered all my lights with blue gel. This has the effect of filtering out the red cast of my artificial light to balance with the quality of natural sunlight. With the same light setup, I could move around for various angles and close-ups without readjusting my lights. And then the big moment came with all the holiday joy. This was by far the most involved setup. I had a good-sized room, and it was full of Easter ham lovers.
To gain maximum flexibility in shooting angles, Joni's lighting diagram was mapped out like this, using one main key, two backlights, and a roving fill light.
I decided to use the ceiling chandelier as my main source of light, but I had to increase the wattage of the bulbs from 60 to 100 watts each, making sure I didn't overload the fixture. I also used two backlights from opposite points of the room. These also helped to fill in the people on the opposite sides of the table when I shot across it. When I shot from the front, I used a roving fill light to complete my setup.
You like that? You have, oh, you Now I missed the potatoes.
I shot foreground shapes out of focus, background people in focus, giving depth to the frame. See how the faces are pleasingly modeled, even as they look down? My overall light level gave me plenty of leeway to shoot freely around the table without having unevenness of light from shot to shot. Always pre-visualize, either in your head or, if they're more involved, on a piece of paper. And always ask yourself in every creative lighting situation, what do I want to show here? For this holiday gathering, it was simple. Love and joy, real family togetherness.
Yes, here we are. Now a little piece of ham. Here, look at that. All right.
We hope you've enjoyed this show and will refer to it often.
Just follow the 3 C's. Once you grasp the basic concepts of light, take control and add a little creativity. The art of lighting is yours.